And welcome back to the Buckle Up Podcast universe with Brandon Rush and Mama Rush. If this is your first time tuning in, I am actor Brandon Rush. I've been in 81 TV shows and movies. I launched the Buckle Up Podcast with my lovely mother April 9th of 2025. And since then, we are in 18.8 million, or 18.8 million viewers and listeners are tuning in. We are in 75 countries and we are in 831 cities around the world. We're very excited about that because it gives us opportunity for our guests to tell their story, for you to learn a little bit about them, and to prove that it is never too late to go after the career and dream that you want. So we are excited, ecstatic. We also are grateful to all the guests that tune in on a regular basis around the world and enjoy our show and seeing a mom and son do what we do best, which is entertain and bring out great stories. So with that being said, we're going to have Dr. Smitha on here today, Smitha Navarro. So Dr. Smitha Navarro will be coming on here that I believe works in pediatrics or did at one point. She and also in sports medicine as well. So her career, she took an unconditional path to becoming a doctor, and she will be coming on here to tell her story. So I'm going to have her explain it because she probably explains it best, and I didn't want to butcher it. So we're looking forward to having Smitha on here any moment now. Dr. Smitha Navarro on the Buckle Up Podcast universe with Brandon Rush and Mom Rush. And then I want to let Dr. Smith in. She should be coming along any minute now. Hello, Dr. Smitha.
Hi, how are you?
We're doing wonderful. How about yourself?
Can't complain.
Nice. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. I've started recording, but I'm gonna go ahead and introduce myself. My mom likes to use her photo, but welcome so much to the Buckle Up Podcast universe with Brandon Rush and
Mama Rush.
And today
Hi,
we have
nice to
one.
meet you.
Nice meeting you too, Dr. Smith.
And then go ahead, Mom. Sorry.
I just want to tell, nice meeting you as well, Dr. Smitha.
Yeah, it's my pleasure. Thanks for having me on.
Of course. Dr. Smith, we should just call you Dr. Smith. Is that what's best to go by?
Yes, you can do Dr. Smitha, Dr. B, Dr. Baliamanda, all the above.
Okay, well, I will probably go. Oh, I like all those. I like Dr. B too. That sounds pretty awesome.
Yeah, I like that too. Okay.
Yeah. Well, Dr. B, it's all about you today. We're so excited for you to come on the show. I'm so thankful for whenever I asked you that you were like, oh yeah, I'd absolutely love to. And you came on, we talked on the phone for about several minutes and I loved hearing your story. So you're able to explain it just like that here today. Dr. Smith, how did you end up getting into medicine, or what is your story about how you got into medicine?
Well, I've been giving some thought to this, and to really understand my journey into medicine, I think we'll have to do a little bit of a dive into my background and
Absolutely.
history. So I hail from South India. My family is from a small warrior tribe in the state of Karnataka called Kodagu. That's the name of the district.
Okay.
And I was born in South India, and my parents immigrated to Connecticut when I was about 6 or so years old. And so my whole journey into medicine began when I was 4. One of my dad's sister's husband was a doctor, and he was really fond of me. I was very fond of him, and he's just a sweet uncle. And he would say to me, "What do you want to be when you grow up?" And he was a doctor, so he was the first one to sort of plant that seed. You
Yeah.
should be a doctor. And I thought, that sounds like a good idea, 4-year-old me.
Yeah.
And I thought, yeah, I like that. Let's go with it. And of course, my parents were like, all right, let's see if it sticks. But that seed stuck, grew roots, and as I grew up, I really enjoyed math and science and the biologies, and that was kind of my forte. And so every step of the way, it kind of just reinforced that, yeah, this is the track for me. And so I never really let up on wanting to be a doctor. So I've knew I wanted to be a doctor since I was 4 years old.
Wow,
Hmm.
that's really impressive. I'm still shocked. Keep going, Smith. Dr. B, you're absolutely got. You already had me hooked.
Yeah,
The only question I want to
well,
ask is, what was that? Just one quick interjection. What was that transition like from being in India and then coming over here to the United States and Canada? What was it?
uh, so to keep it real,
Yeah, absolutely.
my parents had a difficult transition. They were in India for a very, majority of their adult life, and it was everything they knew.
Mhm.
So to come to the States was a big transition for them. And my dad's older sister was really the one that was sponsoring all of her siblings. My dad's one of eight
Okay.
Mm.
kids, and my mom's one of four. And so my aunt was the one that really sponsored all of her siblings to give them the opportunity to come here and to have that opportunity for a better life and more opportunities. And so my parents made the decision when I was about six. My sister was two. My brother was 8 months old. We were all born there
Okay.
to come to the US. And when they made that decision, they liquidated all their assets to be able to have some funding. But I think my dad had like, I don't know, $7 in his pocket when he came
Oh,
here.
wow.
So they
Mm.
worked multiple jobs. They worked tirelessly. So, and that's really to give me, my sister, my brother the best opportunities for
Mm.
success. And not to say you couldn't have those opportunities in India, but as most of us are aware, there's 1 billion people there, which makes for a lot of competition. And
Mhm.
so, even if you're the cream of the crop, unless you have some contacts or the money, it's very difficult to get the kinds of opportunities that you may have here in the United States. So, that's when they made the decision to come here. So they come
Mhm.
from this warrior tribe, and I want to go back to that
Please
because
do. Please
the
do.
tribe that I am from, that these are very strong-willed people.
Okay.
We are soldiers in a martial community by ancestry. We were the
Mhm.
royal kings and we were the guards for the royal kings and queens when monarchies used to exist. Our
Mhm.
history is a little mysterious. We're not quite sure exactly where we come from. We don't really look like typical South Indians. Our features are a little different. Like my aunt, my maternal grandmother could have probably passed for someone that's Italian.
Really?
My sister-in-law also has very Eurocentric features. So they're kind of like, where do these people come from? So there's all kinds of stories about we were, Alexander the Great soldiers that settled in that area, and or perhaps some Kurdish and Syrian soldiers that came from Alexander the Great, or perhaps we came from North India. It's kind of unclear.
Hmm.
Mhm.
But it's a group of strong-willed, determined people. There are a number of people that ended up going into the military, and also a lot of athletes that hail from this area. And
Really?
Mhm.
so they're, just from ancestry, it's a group of strong-willed, you know, we're going to make it, we're going to work hard, we're going to do what we need to do type of an attitude, but
Mhm.
also the kindest people you'll ever meet.
Yeah.
You hear about Southern hospitality. Well, people have heard we are known for our hospitality as
Okay.
well. So
Absolutely.
so that's a little bit about my history. And so when we came here, the work ethic that my parents instilled to ensure our success is incomparable. And that was sort of the template that myself and my siblings have. Um,
Okay.
so going into any venture, it wasn't about um, can I succeed? It was there's really no room but to succeed. That's
Amen.
it, you know.
Amen.
So that's the beginning.
I I am absolutely, that is such an impressive story, and I love. It's actually sounds like you have a lot in common with the Black community too. Going that went through this civil rights movement, like my parents' generation, and them, and the resilience that they had to be able to get to where they are and provide for their children. So by seeing your parents work this hard, by your family doing all this, what your aunt did as well, you saw your parents work hard to give you opportunities. So you and your two siblings, I believe you said you had two more, three of you to get all together, decided, hey, you know what, we're going to succeed at what we set out to do. So now you're this girl in Connecticut. At 4 years old, you want to be a doctor because of this. I think you said a godfather type figure, uncle figure,
Uncle,
who was
uncle.
a doctor. And so now you're in Connecticut. You're probably working extremely hard in school. What let's go to where now you're in high school. You're about to think about what college you want to go to. I assume you probably did really well in college. And what college did you go to too? And what did you study?
University of Connecticut,
Okay.
UConn.
Okay. Nice. Nice. What did you study while you were there?
Biology. I jumped
Okay.
around a various different majors, and I applied to other colleges in state, out of state. But I landed at UConn because I got a full scholarship. And
Wow.
Oh, wow.
it's really difficult to pass up a full scholarship because I knew
Mhm.
I was going to be paying a pretty penny for med school. My parents supported me financially through medical, tuition and all of that as well. So I couldn't have achieved anything without their support.
Man.
Um, but knowing that medical school was coming,
Hmm.
I
Mhm.
had to take that full scholarship. There was just, that was just a must. And UConn's a
Yeah,
great school.
it is.
What are you saying? An excellent sports school as well. The basketball
Yes.
team, the
Oh
girls
yeah, and
basketball
I was
team
there. I
has
was there
been
when
up.
both the men and the women won. Oh, I was there. There,
Oh,
that's okay.
wow.
Yeah, and it's
I
been
might
up
be aging
against.
myself a little here, but
No, you're
That's
good. You're
quite all
good.
right. And it has given the University of South Carolina a run for its money, or her money, I tell you, because Brandon is a University of South Carolina graduate. And
that's
so our
great.
his basketball team plays your girls' team quite often. And
Oh,
it's
I've
tough.
caught some of
It's
those
true.
games.
What's that?
Gamecocks.
I said I've caught some of those games.
Oh yeah, I bet. I bet. Absolutely.
Tough,
Absolutely.
tough.
I was there during the era of Sue Bird and Swin Cash and that
Okay.
Okay.
team of elite female athletes, and
Oh,
and
wow.
the men's team were also fantastic at that time. I think we were more Tennessee rivals, if I
Hmm.
recall
Mm-hmm.
correctly.
Yeah.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
but the Gamecocks definitely gave us a run for the money too. So,
Great.
Absolutely.
but that whole era, Gino Oriema and his era was a fun time to be there. Um,
Absolutely.
so yeah, so I decided to go to UConn, and I did pre-med there. So pre-med is essentially you major in biology.
Mm-hmm.
And I jumped around my major quite a bit because I
Okay.
would try a different science class, and I'm like, I really like this. So then I would
Mhm.
change my major to that trajectory. So, but it was all within the sciences. It never changed from a pre-medical trajectory.
Okay.
But I think at one point, genetics major because I thought genetics was so cool. And then
Mm-hmm.
I did physiology and anatomy, and I'm like, oh, this is cool. I'm going to be a physiology and anatomy major. So, like, I was kind of all over the place, but still in the same sort of path. And then the funny thing is, at the end, I ended up coming back to a biology major.
Okay.
And when I did that, I realized that I had, after doing all these sciences, and I also never really took breaks. I would do classes in the winter, I would do classes over the summer.
Oh,
I mean, so here's the thing about the whole having parents with incredible work ethic is you don't
yeah.
know
Let's
how
hear.
to relax. You know,
Okay.
I'm like now trying to figure that out for myself,
Hmm.
how to
Mm-hmm.
just sit, I'm
Absolutely.
like not doing something. I'm like, I should be doing something. Well, I should be reading. I should be thinking about my next goals. I
Yeah.
don't know how to sit. And
Absolutely.
I think now in my life, I'm sort of trying to instill that because and we'll get into this later, but that's very important for health and wellness, that balance.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
So back then, when I decided to go back to biology, I realized I had enough credits to graduate a year early.
Mm.
Wow.
But when I realized that, I was still in the process of you have to take what's called the MCATs to
Mm-hmm.
apply for the US medical programs or general medical programs. That's like a good standardized test to gauge where you are in your basic science knowledge. And so I still was studying for that. And then the whole application process takes about a year. So you're applying in the fall and you wouldn't find out till the following spring where you're going or where you're getting accepted, blah, blah, blah. And then you would do those interviews, end of fall, winter time frame. And then you would find out in the spring, okay, what school are you going to?
Mm-hmm.
So I had a year ahead of me, but I could have graduated in 3 years. I had a scholarship for 4 years. And I'm like, well, what do I do? Because I don't want to just I have this whole year of tuition that would, if I graduate early, that year of tuition is just gone. So
Mm-hmm.
for that last year, I took up medical anthropology, which I'm
Mm-hmm.
very grateful for doing that as a minor. I did it as a minor. So
Mm-hmm.
I had all my credits I needed for biology. Then for that last year, when I knew I was going to be focusing on the MCATs, I also did a minor in medical anthropology.
Mm-hmm.
And that was, it's anthropology, but I had a focus in medical stuff. And that was very eye-opening for me because, and of course, this is a couple decades ago now, but um, I learned that 80% of the world turns to other forms of health and wellness. So, what we traditionally look at as allopathic medicine, that's like you go
Mm-hmm.
to your doctor, you get your tests, you do what you need to do. It's more science, evidence-based medicine.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
But 80% of the world turns to other forms of healing and wellness. So I learned about shamanism, Reiki, the more of the tribal aspects of medicine. And I think that year of understanding how people view health and wellness was really helpful for me down the road. And I didn't see this until looking back now. But the
Absolutely.
reason why it helped me is I realized that unless your patient is in on the plan for their health, and
Hmm.
Mm-hmm.
unless you take into perspective their background and what they value,
Mm-hmm.
you're wasting your time and you're wasting their time. They're not going
Absolutely.
to have that buy-in.
Hmm.
So, whatever their beliefs is, whether you believe it or not, it is important for physicians to acknowledge it. You don't need to agree, you don't need to
Mm-hmm.
accept it, but you need to acknowledge it and you have to respect it because
Mm-hmm.
your patient will does not care what you have to say if you don't
Mm-hmm.
care about what they have to say and what they value.
Yeah.
So
I
it's a
understand.
two-way street, and medical plans, like when I see a patient and I say, okay, this is what I recommend, that's what I say. I say, this is what I
Mm-hmm.
recommend. What do you
Hmm.
think about this plan? The
Mm-hmm.
reason is if they don't have that opinion in their healing,
Hmm.
they're
Mm-hmm.
not going to invest in it.
Okay. Okay.
See what I mean?
That's interesting. What I want, and I want to get dive more into that shortly, but I want to ask you a question. So, after you took that year in medical anthropology, is it anthropology?
Anthropology.
Yes, exactly. You went to overseas for medical school, or you stayed here in the States for medical school?
So I applied all over in the
Uh huh.
US.
Hmm.
And when I say all over, I mean like all over the world.
Uh
Yeah.
huh.
India,
Uh
Europe, the Caribbean,
huh.
the US.
Uh
And I
huh.
went into various schools.
Hmm.
And then I had to kind of sit back and think, okay, well, what do I want to do? So when I was in
Hmm.
college, I did some travel. One of my really good friends was from Puerto Rico. I remember one spring break, I completely crashed her like family trip to Puerto Rico. Just she was like, "You want to come with me?" I'm like, "Yeah." She's like, "I'm going to be visiting my aunts and grandmas and stuff." I'm like, "Sounds cool. Let's do it." Just because
Hmm.
I've always wanted to travel.
Hmm.
And so that travel bug really bit me in college. And I had
Okay.
spent, my formidable years in Connecticut.
Hmm.
Now, my parents traveled as much as they could when we certainly did family vacations, but that interest to want to be in different places and experience other countries, other experiences was gnawing at me. And so
Hmm.
this is why when it came to med school, I really broadened my scope and applied everywhere. And I got in
Okay.
all over the world.
Wow.
Oh,
And
great.
so then I had to decide, okay, what am I going to do?
Yeah.
And um, the program I ended up going with was Ross University, and they have, I guess I could describe it as like a hybrid program. It's technically an international program
Uh
because
huh.
you do your basic sciences. So basic sciences is like all your bookwork, anatomy, physiology, microbiology, chemistry, um, pharmacology, all those things that you need that foundation, right? Like before you get
Hmm.
into a patient room, you need a basic knowledge, that building block of medicine.
Hmm. Hmm.
And I did all of that in an island called Dominica. It's the nature Caribbean. It's the nature island of the Caribbean. It's known as
Okay.
the nature island of the Caribbean. So I decided on the Caribbean. And the
Uh-huh.
reason is, as much as thought about, Europe and even India, and
Mm-hmm.
other parts of the world, or even in the States, I wanted to have this different cultural experience and travel,
Mm-hmm.
but also be close enough to be home. Remember, this is the first time I'm like flying.
Leaving.
Well, I take it back. I did go to boarding school for 1 year in high school in
Oh,
India. Um,
oh, wow.
spent
Okay.
Oh.
a year in India, my freshman year of high school,
Mm-hmm.
and then came back, um, and so that also kind of influenced my desire to travel,
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Um, but other than that, I pretty much was in Connecticut for
Uh,
most of my child and young adult life. And so I was kind of ready to branch out. But I didn't want to go so far away that I was away too far from my family. Whereas
uh-huh.
Dominica was a quick, I could get home in a couple hours on a flight.
Uh-huh.
Mhm.
So I
Uh-huh.
felt good about that. So here I am flying into Dominica.
Uh-huh.
And now I have to find my own place. So they did
Uh-huh.
a bus tour that they took all medical students and their family members, and you would go to various apartments and complexes where you could get
Uh-huh.
to see. And some people were signing leases like right there on the tour,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Oh, wow.
Now don't forget you're going to be starting classes soon, so you need a place
Yeah.
to stay.
Mhm.
Yes.
And there was this girl that sat right behind me with her parents. She's Guyanese Indian. And
Mm.
she started talking to me and we hit it off. And then she goes, "Do you want to be my roommate?" And I'm like, "All right, okay, let's do it." We literally just met on this bus tour. We decided to
Yeah.
go together. And that's because, it was the first time she was on her own. And I said, "You know what? Yeah, let's try to find a spot together. We'll see how it goes." And
Uh-huh.
we ended up renting a house together that day, signed the
Yeah.
lease, signed the paperwork, rented this house, and that began my medical school journey. Then classes started, and you do all that book work. So I was in Dominica for 16 months doing
Mm-hmm.
all of that book
Okay.
work.
Mm-hmm.
And then, now I don't know if the program has changed because this is a couple decades ago, and I heard that Ross University now has a base in the Bahamas. So I'm
Mm-hmm.
not sure if they relocated because I believe Dominica had like a hurricane or something pass through there. There was some damage. This was after I had left the island. So,
Mm-hmm.
um, but back then, after you finish that book work, you had to take this big comprehensive exam of everything. You had to have like a certain score to be able to go to the next you know,
Mm-hmm.
set of
Mm-hmm.
courses.
Year. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So that next set of courses, you move to Miami, Florida.
Oh,
So I'm
wow.
still in medical school, but
Mm-hmm.
the next set of stuff is in Miami, Florida, where they do these introduction to clinical medicine courses.
Mm-hmm.
So then put everything in shipping containers, and now I'm moving to Miami.
Okay.
And I lived in Miami 8 or 9 months doing all these intro to clinicals. That was the first time I started to actually do
Mm-hmm.
patient care.
Mhm.
Well, we had some patient care stuff in the island too,
Okay.
but really getting into clinical rotations was when I moved to Miami. So
Okay.
Okay.
that was kind of my first few years of medical school,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
and it was everything I wanted it to be. I would not do a single thing differently. I really enjoyed the way I did it because while I was in the Caribbean, we would do weekend trips to Guadalupe, to
Mm-hmm.
Anguilla, to where else? St. Lucia, we went to one
Mm-hmm.
weekend. And these trips, as a medical student, you're on a budget. You only have
Yeah.
so much. You're taking out loans. You can't just spend money, but you're talking round trip tickets for $80
I
Okay.
can't beat that.
back then,
Uh,
Yeah.
and there was, I convinced my friend, like my Guyanese
Uh-huh.
friend that I was rooming with. Um, I said, this is like 2 weeks before an anatomy exam. She's like, "We need to study for this anatomy exam." I'm like, "We've been studying. We need to do this. This is important.
Uh-huh.
Go to Trinidad." I like
Yeah.
convinced her to go to Trinidad for Carnival. Okay.
Okay. Oh, wow. Yeah.
I bet
She was
that was
like, I
wonderful.
was like, "This is a once in a lifetime. We gotta go. We've been
Uh-huh.
studying for anatomy all 3 months now. We've got this.
Mm-hmm.
Let's go." And of course, the way I convinced her is that we take our anatomy books and we would study while we were there, in the middle
Mhm.
of Juve and throwing, doing all kinds of stuff.
Yeah.
But there we go. We went to Trinidad for Carnival. So I felt so grateful to have that experience. It was so unique, and
Yeah.
um, it was fun, you know.
Oh.
Like
Good.
Yeah.
we worked hard. Don't get me wrong. We got like one weekend a quarter where we could do this. It's not
Mm-hmm.
like
Yeah.
every weekend we're Highland hopping, you know.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Buckle down and you're studying and you're working hard and there's a lot of independent learning that needs to happen there too.
Mm-hmm. Oh, wow.
So, but the whole program closely aligns with the American school curriculums. So that's
Okay.
where the
Okay.
transitions were easier because it aligns so closely with American schools. However, I had very unique experiences there because there
Okay.
were native Caribbeans that lived on this mountain that did not have
Mm-hmm.
access to any health care. And
Uh-huh.
we would go and provide volunteer health care, blood pressure
Oh,
clinics
wow.
and checkups. And, you know, that's what I say. I got a little bit of patient interaction because we would
That
do
was
this kind of
great.
volunteer stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. You got
So
hands-on
literally
there.
hiking up a mountain with all of our medical equipment to go
Oh, wow. That was,
and you know, give some medical access to these folks.
yeah. That was great.
Smitha.
Hey, Dr.
Okay.
B, did you, excuse me, Brandon,
You good?
Brandon? Okay.
You
Dr.
good?
B, did you feel that when you came back to the United States, did they make you take courses over, or did they say that, okay, right now we need you to line up with certain coursework that they require here in the United States? Oh, it was no difference there than here. So I just want to make sure if people decide to go overseas and do their, I guess it's medical, get their medical degree there, when they come back to the United States, are there some additional requirements that they have of you?
So, one clarification. I was still
Okay.
in the same medical school. I
Okay.
never
Okay.
changed to a different med school. It was all the same program.
Okay.
Okay.
So it wasn't like there was nothing that I had to redo.
Hmm.
Okay. Okay.
Once you finish this medical school program,
Mm-hmm.
you end with an MD.
Okay.
Your
Okay.
MD is an international MD, but
Okay.
you have a medical degree.
Okay,
Okay.
that's great. I'm glad you clarified because we have a friend and she went overseas. Well, she could not get into any medical school here in the United States, but she was brilliant, brilliant young lady. She went overseas and because she didn't get in, she still wanted to be a doctor. So she trained overseas. And then when she came back, she had to take some additional training here in the United States. But what you're saying, the program that you are in that people can be made aware of, you can train within that whole system and live in another country.
Yes, yes. And
Okay,
this is why
great,
I was making the point that it
great,
closely aligns with the United States medical programs when it comes to
great.
courses and
Mm-hmm,
clinical exposure, and
mm-hmm.
including our USMLEs, there was time frames within the medical program that would allow you to take those board exams. So in
Great.
once you have your medical degree, you also have had to take a number of board exams. So you've got
Mm-hmm.
USMLE, the United States Medical Licensing Exam, step 1 and step 2. And so
Okay,
you have to take that plus the step 2, and then there's a step 3, and then you also have like this clinical exam. So you have to have
okay.
all of those boxes checked
Uh-huh.
before you can apply for a residency program in the United States.
Okay,
We'll get to that. But this is all one medical program. So
okay.
even though I was technically doing rotations in the US, I was
Oh, okay.
graduating from an international school.
Okay, okay, that's good for one to know, because she's done really well when she came back, and she's now at one of the top medical facilities doing her residency now here. So it worked out great for her, and I just love how you were excited to have that hands-on training, which is
Mhm.
so needed with patients all over the world that live there, and then come back and be able to understand the care and the need, and that's I mean, you can't put anything like that on paper. You just have to actually feel it and do it and know about it and experience it, I believe. But
Absolutely. Yeah.
yeah, and that is great. So you came back to the United States. Well, you're here still, and where did you do your residency?
So there was still more within my medical school. So you do
Yeah.
the
Okay.
intro to clinicals in Miami.
Okay.
But after I did those introduction to clinicals, I had a choice. I could stay in Miami, finish out all my clinical rotations there, or I could move
Mm-hmm.
around. But remember, I was the one that wanted to experience a lot of different
Sure.
places. So of
Yeah.
course,
Sure.
I'm all about the travel. So I took my first set of board exams in US. That's the USMLE Step 1. I took that in
Okay.
Miami.
Okay.
Studied for it and took it there. And I also did my first clinical rotations I had done in Miami as well. I actually did my family practice rotation in Miami and a psychiatric rotation there as well. So like this, you know how I talked about the first year or two of medical school, you're doing like the book work. Um,
Uh-huh.
Anatomy, chemistry, biology, those courses. Well, then the second half is all clinical exposure, but this time you're going into specialty work like family medicine, internal
Okay.
medicine,
Uh-huh.
surgery. So that's the other half. So you've got the
Oh,
book work half, now you've got the clinical half of med
okay.
school.
Oh, okay. All
So I
right.
started that journey in Miami, took my
Oh,
step 1, and then I thought, well, ready for a change. So I pack everything up in my Honda CRV, and my husband, who's friends with Brandon, uh,
uh-huh.
when when my husband and I met, he would joke that that car looked like it had hit everything but the lottery, and he wasn't wrong because that car was
Brandon,
really.
it looks like your Brandon has a Honda like that. That looks like it's
Yeah.
been, but it's a great car. Go ahead.
Hey, it worked. He would tease me because at one point I would have to get into that car through the passenger side. He's like, "When are you going to get a new car?" Like I literally had to climb in through the passenger side to get into this vehicle. But I'm like, it still drives fine. I don't see
Mm-hmm.
what the problem is here. I'm like,
Absolutely.
hey, now he's an engineer, mechanical engineer, so he's all about the cars, and
Mhm.
that's like his thing. So he was absolutely mortified by me. But that's a different story.
Yeah.
Um, so here I am, pack everything up into my Honda CRV, and now I'm driving from Miami up to New York because my
Oh,
next set of clinical rotations I set up in New York. So this is where the flexibility comes in to play. When you
okay.
go to a US med school, they will handle all of this. So this is where you have to be able to do some finagling, you have to do some things
Oh,
independently. So if you want to set up rotations in different places, there are folks that are working with you in the university to help facilitate that, but you got
oh,
to be on it and you have to set those rotations up. It's not like a
Oh,
US medical school where they're going to do all that for you.
uh-huh.
Here, you're making calls, you're talking to your counselor, you're signing up for those courses, and the university will facilitate that, but there's a little bit more hands-on work that you yourself are doing. So,
Okay.
like I'll give you a for example. There was this one
Okay.
insane rotation. I won't mention which hospital, but
you
let's
don't
just
have
say it was in Brooklyn.
to.
And uh, there were medical students that absolutely were scared if they got assigned this rotation. I had heard through the grapevine that you learn a lot because they let medical students do a lot. Like there are medical students putting in lines. What that means is like literally lines,
Yeah.
central
Mm.
lines, PIC lines,
Oh, why? Oh, wow.
getting all kinds of exposure in this
Mm-hmm.
hospital.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought that was great. Now, some people would like, you're crazy. Why would you want to do that? They're really hard on you. Like it's no joke. Like you're working all the time. But I thought, no, that's a great experience. Like I'm probably going to learn so much. I want to do it. So I had a friend of mine who was automatically assigned a rotation there. And she's
Mm-hmm.
like, I don't want to do it at this hospital. And I'm like, okay, because these rotations were so competitive. So she was on the phone with her counselor, getting ready to drop that rotation. I was
Mm-hmm.
simultaneously on the phone with my counselor getting ready to pick up her drop.
Yeah. Oh,
Oh,
nice.
wow. Uh-huh.
This
Yeah.
is what I mean when I say you have to kind of hustle to get what
Yeah.
you want. But I
Mm-hmm.
knew I
Mm-hmm.
wanted that.
Mm-hmm.
I knew I wanted that rotation. And I got it.
Mhm.
And I moved to New York. And that was my first rotation in New York. And it was hard.
What?
And I'll tell you, I never doubted my my path into medicine until I
Mm-hmm.
did that rotation.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember I was about 6 weeks into the rotation. And when I
Mm-hmm.
say it was hard, there were no regulations for medical students. Like I would go into the hospital at 5 in the morning, and maybe I'd be getting home at 5 or 6 or 7 p.m. the next day.
Oh,
Oh,
wow.
So you'd be on
that's
call every other day. I was
mm-hmm.
working, 30, 46. There was a time where I was working and I'm like seeing double, and I'm like, oh, I can't change this line. Like I
Holy
can't
Mhm.
do this. I would have to go
Mm.
bring someone fresh in and say, do me a favor, can you do this line? Because I'm too tired to do
Yeah.
this.
Mhm.
You have to kind of get to that point of knowing what you can and can't do type of a thing. But it wasn't the hard work that had me thinking whether this was the right path for me or not. It was the first time in my life I felt responsible for another person's well-being and their life.
Uh-huh.
And I was so afraid of making the wrong decision and
Mhm.
killing someone, you know?
Yeah.
Mm. Mhm.
I mean, I want to put it so bluntly, but that's
But
basically
no.
what it is.
Yeah.
That fear is real. You may
Mhm.
miss something or you don't understand something. Now, granted, I was a medical student, right? So this is all
Mhm.
a lot for me all at once between I
Mhm.
was still learning, but then I had a lot of responsibility at this hospital. And you bond with your patients and you start to get invested, and then you're like you're dealing with mortality in a
Yeah.
way that
Mhm.
you've never dealt with in your whole life.
Mhm.
And I think I had finished a shift. I was started at 5 a.m. then one morning, went home 5 or 6 p.m. the next day. I think I slept for like 15 hours, woke up with my backpack still on my back,
Holy
Mm.
smokes.
how tired I was.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And I remember calling my dad and I was like, I don't know if I can do this.
Mm.
Mhm.
And he kind of let me vent, and then he said, "You're already halfway through." It was a 3 month rotation. He said, "You're
Mhm.
already halfway through. You already got this far.
Yeah.
You can do
Mhm.
it." And
Mhm.
he first entertained the possibility of me just stopping it all and coming home. He said, "What are you going to do when you come home?" I'm like, "I don't know.
Yeah.
I'll
Mhm.
figure it out. Do something else."
Yeah.
Mhm.
And that's when he said, "No, you're halfway. You've done it. You've gotten this far. Like just figure it
Yes.
out." And I said, "Well, you know what? He's right. I'm
Mhm.
halfway through. I've gotten this far. Let's just see what happens." And I got to tell you, finishing that rotation gave me such confidence in my clinical skills. It gave me
Mhm.
the confidence to know that whatever comes my way, I can handle it. You gain this like level of I can do hard things.
Yeah.
Mhm. Mhm.
Absolutely.
And I would say that that was a very important rotation for me. It was hard. It was as hard as everybody said it was,
Mhm.
but it really taught me a lot because I did so much. I was allowed
Mhm.
to do so much,
Mhm.
and I learned so much. And from that um, experience, I there was no other rotation,
Mhm.
including my experiences in residency, that was as hard as that.
Holy smokes. Yeah.
Mhm.
So.
Smith. Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. Dr. B, I just wanted to say, first off, that was an absolutely incredible story. I
Mhm.
wanted to, like, I love this fact that when I don't even have to say anything, I am just enjoying hearing everything. That is just amazing. You're phenomenal. You're just a great guest that I thought you would be.
Mhm. Mhm. Mhm.
But I was thinking back to what you said whenever you were how difficult it was at that time, and you were ready thinking about going home, and the fact that of how you called your parents and why having a parent or parents are so important. And I'm gonna relate this to a story of me just really quickly. I remember when I was ready to give up on football, which isn't saving a life at all. But I was ready to give up on football after the first week because I was a fat kid that was out of shape. It was my first time doing something really tough, and my dad wouldn't allow me to quit. Why that was so important was because I pushed through that. I was a fat kid to start, ended up being in shape by the end of it. But it built in me the system throughout I've carried throughout my life of I don't give up when it's hard. So in my career that I work in, it's not saving life, it's not curing cancer, but there's difficult times that come in, even when it comes to me when I lived in LA full time. There's difficulty that came along trying to figure out bills and all the expensive stuff. I kept going with it because I had that no giving up mentality was built into me, which is why I love when your dad spoke with you, how he told you, you know what, hey, he did a different route because I guess he's like, you know what? You're already halfway there. Why not? Like a little bit, maybe reverse psychology, but he knew as a parent the right thing to say that, and he knew who you were as his daughter. He knew the tribe that you came from and the warrior tribe, I think you said that you came from in India and that you had that within you. And then you yourself believed in yourself first and foremost, and you pushed through that. And I would say that has made a big difference in your life going forward. So I just wanted to interject that part.
I
Yes.
like.
Yeah.
Oh, well, one thing I wanted to mention too, when you talked about that rotation and the hardest thing, one of the hardest things, and I think so much, as Brandon said, road least traveled by others. And that clinical rotation was one, I guess, least traveled by most. But in that, what did you learn, or what have you learned a little about prevention, lifestyle, and family involvement in health or in your career now?
Um, there is a time where you have to hustle. There's a time where you're gonna have to maybe sacrifice things that you know are good for you, like sleep.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
um, and that was kind of my time to do that. I feel there was really no other way for me to have those experiences without sort of going through it. I think there's a lot
Mm-hmm.
more parameters in place now because there's obviously more mistakes if someone is tired. I think they
Mm-hmm.
did a study and said, if you're working through fatigue, it's almost like you're inebriated just because you're so fatigued. So I
Mm-hmm.
think we're moving in the right direction in how
Mm-hmm.
medical education is being handled, in the sense that there are more parameters to ensure that students are getting the rest they need. And I wonder how much of my emotional response to that situation was just being sleep deprived,
Yeah.
You're not the most
Mm-hmm.
stable person when you're tired
Yeah.
all the time.
Yeah.
I know that as a parent, and
Uh-huh.
so I think looking back, and I kept churning like that, kept churning, like uh, whether it was medical school, residency. We haven't even gotten to residency, but residency and fellowship, that was me on the churn.
Mm-hmm.
I think my motto back then was work hard, play hard. And that's
Yeah.
how,
Mm-hmm.
that's how I did it. And the way that I had that balance back then was I would give it 110%, and then I
Mm-hmm.
would relax and enjoy and let loose to give myself that balance.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but it was definitely not as balanced as I am trying to do now in my career and as a mom.
Okay.
Um, and so it's just a different pace, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But there's a
Absolutely.
time where you gotta do that, sometimes you just have to do that there, but it shouldn't be a forever thing. That's when it becomes a real problem.
All
Um,
right.
and so after I did all my uh, clinical rotations and you graduate, now I've got my
Mm-hmm.
degree, now I'm applying for residencies. I applied again all over the country
Mm-hmm.
and interviewed all over the place. And because I was an international graduate, um, I had a different avenue for residency.
Mm-hmm.
When you're a medical school graduate from the US, we meaning non in US students, enter the match. Are you guys familiar with the match?
We both are, because mom worked in a medical. But would you explain it for our audience, please? Because our audience is all the way from 18 all the way up to 55. So would you mind explaining that though for us, please?
Okay, sure. So basically, the match program, it's you interview at a number of different residency programs, and then based on which ones you like, you rank them as your number one, number two, number three, all the way through how many ever programs you interviewed in. So let's say 10. So you
Mm-hmm.
rank your programs 1 through 10, your favorite to your least favorite, right? And
Mm-hmm.
then all the places you interview, they will also rank you. They rank all of their medical students that they interviewed, one through whatever. And
Mm-hmm.
so there's this match system that goes through and tries. So if you rank someone number one and they ranked you number one, you match. Boom.
Oh,
But if
okay.
they ranked you number one and you rank them number five, you might not go there. It's a mismatch.
Oh,
Oh,
So
wow.
okay.
you might end up somewhere 1 through 4, because even though they ranked you number one, but they were number five on your list, or you rank someone number one, but you were number five on their list, it's a
Mhm.
mismatch. So you might go
Mm-hmm.
in between somewhere.
Okay.
But when you're an international grad, you can sign a contract with a residency program outside of the match. Now, to my knowledge,
Oh.
something has changed. Back then, that was not available for medical students from the US. You couldn't do
Uh,
that. But for
uh-huh.
international students, you'd be by the contract, you would have to notify all the programs you interviewed with and said, I'm out of the match, so that they're not ranking you because you're officially out of the match.
Hmm.
Uh-huh.
You sign a contract. It's kind of like a free agent. I
Yeah.
Oh,
for
okay.
sports analogy because
That's
I was,
a great analogy. Uh-huh.
kind of like a free agent. You know what I mean?
Okay.
Uh-huh.
So basically, I was interviewing and my number one program was Drexel University in Philadelphia.
Oh, Jackson.
And I loved the staff. I loved the energy there. During my interview, I immediately felt really comfortable with our program director and their staff and faculty were down to earth. Nobody went by doctor. They were all first name basis, and
Mm-hmm.
it was just a different vibe, and I liked it. They were super down to earth, but also like all about the education.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd never lived in Philly. So at this point, I had done rotations in New York, and then I did all my intro to clinicals in DC. So I was living in DC when I was interviewing in Philadelphia. So I was having my DC experience while doing all my interviews.
Mm-hmm.
And so I just really enjoyed that program. Never lived in Philly, so that was a perk. But I think it was January of whatever year I was doing interviews, and I was in Hawaii interviewing for their medical
Oh,
program.
wow.
Mm-hmm.
And Hawaii was beautiful. They were like my number two, like, mostly because it's Hawaii. I mean, I
Yeah.
had a friend of mine that I met at rotations who was doing her pediatric residency there. So I was crashing on her and her boyfriend's couch
Okay.
doing this interview. But I was there for like a 2-day interview, but I stayed for like a week just to
Mhm.
hang out in Hawaii. And I was sold. Like I mean, the Hawaiian doctors, they were in their Hawaiian shirts and going to surf and living this life. And I'm like, yeah, I could do this. This is
Absolutely.
beautiful. Like every day is a beautiful day. There was, I think, one day I just spent around driving all around Oahu.
Oh, wow.
I went skydiving randomly, stopped at this skydiving place just to check it out. I literally by myself parked, went in. It was this French group of French folks that had the skydiving company. And next thing you know, I'm like listening to the videotape. I've got this backpack on me going up in the air,
Are
literally.
you serious?
Oh,
Oh,
wow.
Jumping out
wow.
of an airplane.
Woo.
It was incredible. So here I am, like, I think I might want to do Hawaii. And while
Mhm.
I'm in Hawaii, I get a call from the director at Drexel University saying, we want to offer you a contract.
Oh,
Ooh, wow.
So
man.
then it's like, oh, this is
Wonderful.
like, I got to make a decision.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm in a different time zone and I tell them I'm in Hawaii right now. Can I call you when I come back? Yeah, no problem.
Hmm.
So buying me some time to think what I want to do. Because
Absolutely.
it was like, I'm in Hawaii and I'm like, this is really pulling me here. Then I
Yeah.
started thinking, this is really far from my family. It's like a 15-hour flight from the East Coast. There's no guarantee if I didn't take this opportunity. Now, mind you, Drexel was my number one at that point.
Yeah, absolutely.
So this is like a difficult decision because it was the best program of all the programs I had interviewed with at that point. And I thought about it and I thought it's a better location being closer to family.
Hmm.
I love the program, love the staff. And so when I came back, I decided to pull out of the match and I signed with Drexel.
Okay.
Oh,
Oh,
okay.
wow.
And that's where I did my family medicine residency.
Mhm.
And then Drexel also offered a sports medicine fellowship. And I wasn't really thinking sports medicine, but whenever they asked for volunteers to cover sports games, I would always volunteer. And
Okay.
Mhm.
so the chief was like, you did all this volunteering stuff. Why don't you do the fellowship? And I said, yeah, maybe I'll work for a little bit and I'll come back. And he goes, it doesn't work like that. Most people
Mhm.
that go into the work field, they don't want to come back to doing a fellowship. It's rare that that happens. And
Mhm.
he was the one that really sort of guided me into applying for the fellowship, the sports medicine fellowship.
Mhm.
And so I ended up, he basically said, I'll give you the weekend. Now, mind you, these applications take weeks, sometimes months to put together. You have to have a certain number of recommendations and, you have to do a personal statement. I think I might have slept like 3 hours that weekend.
Oh, wow.
And I got it done. He said, if you give me an application, I talked to my dad and my parents again.
Mhm.
I do this. And my dad's like, it's a great opportunity because what he basically said is, I will give you an interview slot if you can get me a completed application by Monday. Now, I think I had this conversation with him on a Thursday. So
Yeah.
I talked to my parents. My parents were like, you should just go for it. What's the harm? Do it. It's a good opportunity. He's giving you an interview. People would be bending
Right.
over backwards just to get that opportunity. And I thought, yeah, you know what? Let me go for it. And I really enjoyed sports, always was into sports and athletics, so that was a natural thing. And
Mhm.
then my tribe, a lot of us ended up going to sports. My dad was an athlete. He was a field hockey. Field hockey was a big sport in India. My mom also played a game called Kho and volleyball in college. So both of them were athletes. It was we all, both me and my siblings, we always did sports growing up. So
Mhm.
something I always enjoyed.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was my forte, I guess. So there's always that interest. So I said, yeah, like, you know what, let me get this done. Let me see if I can do it. So I did.
Yeah.
I hustled and I got that application completed, my personal statement completed, got all recommendations because I had been working with other physicians. They vouched for me. Now, again, another
Uh-huh.
situation where if it wasn't for the faculty at Drexel and, them really showing up for me, I
Mm-hmm.
wouldn't have been able to have a completed application. But, they gave me great recommendations, and now I had a completed packet. So one of the medical directors there and attending physicians said, well, you have a completed packet. Why don't you apply to other programs? Because Philly area has a lot of great sports fellowship programs. So they
Uh-huh.
said, why don't you apply for, other programs? You already have a completed application. I said, well, I'm 30 days past the deadline for
Mhm.
applications. Like the fact that our chair was willing to give me an interview was a gift. Like no
Yeah.
other program's going to look at my application. I missed the deadline. That's like marker number one. Get your
Yeah.
application in time. And so then some of the attendings said, you know what? I'll make some calls for you. So I
Wow.
started calling around because they had contacts in the area at different programs, and I ended up having 6 interviews for sports medicine fellowships, um,
Mhm.
which was incredible, mind
Yeah.
blowing. Now I think
Mm-hmm.
back and look at that, um, but it sometimes when the path is right, things just line up and you just feel it and there's a draw, and that's sort of how it felt. My chief resident, he was doing a sports medicine fellowship down in San Antonio, and
Mhm.
this group in this fellowship program, they took care of the Spurs. And I went down and interviewed it.
Mhm.
He got me an interview through his program, vouching for
Uh-huh.
me. So they gave
Uh-huh.
me an interview. So I flew down there in San Antonio. I did all the big programs in Philly. So there was Jefferson, there was Princeton, Drexel, and one other I can't think of right now. But basically all those programs there, and then this Texas San Antonio program. Went
Yeah.
down to
Yeah.
San Antonio, loved it. Now these
Oh,
guys
wow.
were taking care of the Spurs,
Yeah.
and doing all the sideline coverage. And I'm talking glitz and glam, and
That would really.
then I had to make a decision because it's the same thing, right? The whole match thing.
Yeah.
And they were, it felt like a good interview, felt really like, okay, maybe I've got a good shot there.
Mhm.
But then after I sat back and thought about it, I'm like, you know what? My loyalty is to Drexel. I wouldn't have even gone down this path had my chair not sat me down and guided me in this direction.
Mhm.
So when it came down to the match, I had put Drexel as my number one because
Okay.
Mhm.
I had put the San Antonio program as my number two. But in my heart of hearts, I had that loyalty to this program and this group, this faculty that just showed up time and time again for their residents, their fellows. It was just a phenomenal program, and I was very blessed to be there. And
Uh-huh.
and I just had so much gratitude. So of course, Drexel was my number one. I ended up doing my
Oh,
fellowship there.
well, that I tell you, I just love hearing this about the different paths that you could have taken in life, but then you did take one that was so important. You are now in family medicine. Is that correct? Family
Yes, so
practice.
that's my base training. So when I did the match, when I didn't do Hawaii or in Hawaii,
Mm-hmm.
I got offered this program, pulled out of the match and signed with Drexel. I had gone with family medicine.
Okay.
And so let me explain how I got into family medicine. So there was a time,
Okay.
probably in high school, where I was convinced I wanted to be a cardiologist. I was
Mm-hmm.
fascinated with the heart. And then college came through, then I went to med school, and then you start rotating through each of the specialties. So you rotate through family medicine, you do
Mm-hmm.
psychiatry, you do internal medicine, you can also do specialties. And I even in med school, I was at that point, I really understood what each of the specialties were like, and I had a hard time deciding, do I want to do surgery or
Mm-hmm.
medicine? Because those are two
Mhm.
different paths.
Mm-hmm.
And I really enjoyed surgery. I'm kind of a meticulous type A personality, which is good for to be a surgeon and have that type of personality. And
Mm-hmm.
the surgeons I rotated with, you'd be a great, you'd be a great surgeon. You should really consider going down the path of surgery. And this is how I ended up in DC because in DC had this trauma surgery in PG County. I don't know if you guys know what PG County is, but let's
I,
just say every other patient is like a stab wound, gunshot
oh
wound,
wow.
stab wound. So if you're trying to get surgical experience, you're going to get it at PG County. And and I decided to do that. Now, usually when you do elective rotations, this is kind of like senior float year. You're trying to take your easy
Yeah.
courses, you're getting ready for residency, but not me. I
Hmm.
decided to do a trauma surgery elective, which
Yeah.
is very busy,
Yeah.
very intense. But
Mm-hmm.
I needed to know
Yeah.
if this was the right path for me.
Mm-hmm.
And I think what this one surgeon said to me really stuck with me. And what they said is, if you could be happy doing any other specialty,
Hmm.
do that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
If you can only be happy being a surgeon and doing surgery, that's when you go down the path of surgery. And so it helped me because I knew that I would be happy in other specialties. That was part of my difficulties choosing a specialty because I felt like I enjoyed it all. I loved working with kids. I loved doing the OB. First time I delivered a baby, I was like, wow, maybe I could do this. And,
Mm-hmm.
I loved working with the geriatric population. I loved all aspects of it. And that's where I landed in family medicine because
Oh,
family medicine, you're treating the little guys to
mm,
grandma and grandpa. So you're literally treating the entire family. And I had a hard time choosing one. I couldn't find one thing that I would want to do. And so,
mhm.
this is how I ended up in family medicine because I liked the idea of being able to treat the family.
Oh,
And
okay.
so that's how I chose family medicine. That's my base residency. And
Uh-huh.
then the sports medicine, which is technically the title is primary care sports medicine or
Uh-huh.
non-operative orthopedics, essentially. And
Okay.
so then that was my subspecialty. So my
Oh,
specialty is family medicine. My subspecialty is primary care sports medicine.
Okay. Smith, Dr. B, I wanted to say one thing about you and the fact that, first off, I love your work ethic. It seems like you constantly are taking the road less traveled and you're taking the difficult route when people are taking the easy route. Sometimes not to use this as an analogy, but firemen, they say a lot of times run into the fire when other people are escaping. It sounds like with a lot of the things that you've done here that you've always taken maybe the more difficult route, which has helped you in the long run. Also, I think that has helped you out with all these people that you told me about that wanted you at their hospital, the people that vouched for you. That speaks to who you are as a person. They liked your character, they liked your work ethic, and you were not only were they a blessing to you, but you were a blessing to them. And so
mhm.
it says a lot about them that even though when Drexel, I think you said that whenever they sent you down there, San Antonio to look, that they were about to send one of their best students down there. They were going to be sad to miss you, but they were willing to give you up and have you go down there so that you can even continue to bless the people down there. But that says a lot about you. And that also says that they were right about you. The fact
Mhm.
that you decided, you know what? This is the glitz and the glamour, it's the Spurs, but I'm going to stay here with the people that vouched for me for day one. And so I just want to give you kudos, let you know that they loved you just as much. And that is just a testament to who you are. And it's great to know that there's doctors out there like you that are there. So I just wanted to interject that.
Oh, that's great, Brandon. Um, what I wanted to mention, Dr. B, and I was listening to Brandon and listening to you as well. And I wanted to ask you a question because it's always been something that I wanted to know about communication when it comes to families struggling and if you could correct one thing that families struggle with, whether it's communication, prevention, or follow through, what would it be?
In terms of health and wellness,
That's
or
health and wellness. Health and wellness, yes.
um, communication, I think, is a biggie. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
it's important to try to be as transparent as possible in of what's happening with you, what's going on when you're going to see your doctor, trying
Mm-hmm.
to give your physician the best opportunity to help you. They need a clear picture.
Mm-hmm.
And so a lot of times this is where I see wives showing up with their husbands because, the
Mm-hmm.
husband may say, yes, I have a cough. And the wife is like, well, he's had a cough for 3 months now. And it's
Mm-hmm.
sometimes he's coughing stuff up and sometimes he's coughing. The husband's literally like, I have a cough,
Mm-hmm.
So this is where that and sometimes that's not a natural thing for folks. And so
Mm-hmm.
having someone there to advocate for you or help you communicate what's happening with you is a biggie. It just
Okay.
sets the in order to get a proper history on whatever it is that's going on with the patient, that
Mm-hmm.
communication piece is important. And then not being shy in the same sort of realm of communication to ask questions, to show
Mm-hmm.
up with questions.
I like that.
Showing up to a doctor's appointment and not having a list of questions is probably not the best prepared manner to go there because your doctor may not have an answer to all of your questions, but at least they can say, let me take that back, let me look into it, and get back to you. And that sort of clarity can help with where you want to go with your health and wellness plan and how to address whatever it is that might be going on.
Oh, I like that you said that communication. When I did preceptorships with physicians, I sold medicines, and it was most amazing that when patients actually go in that room and they take the clothes off, they derobe, and they put that gown on, it's like something in the brain switches. They don't look. It looks like if a doctor's talking, and I'm just overseeing the whole process here, and I see that they're losing the connection with what the doctor is saying and what they want to ask the doctor. And I often thought that either the patient should take someone in with them if that's allowed, or either take a tape recorder and record what the doctor is saying, or either take notes, but some kind of way that information has to get through. And I could see them puzzled. So I like the fact that you just mentioned take questions into the doctor and ask her those questions. Some people are shy because they feel that they may not be at that educational level to ask the right questions of the doctor. And so when you see that, Dr. B, how do you pick up on it, or how do you convey what you were trying to impart in this care for this patient during the time you're talking with the patient, and then how do you follow through after the patient has left?
So my approach with patients has evolved over time. And, when you're first training, and I should say I do have to get my kids from the bus stop.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. We can. Yeah, you're good.
But I want to answer this question real quick. So
Absolutely.
Okay.
my approach has transformed over the years where
Mm-hmm.
I realized the value of trying to get your patient comfortable. And you don't always achieve this. If they have, anxiety or their mind is somewhere and they're stressed or, you can't always bridge that gap, but I think it is important to try to create a comfortable environment
Mm-hmm.
where the patient feels comfortable opening up to you. So
Mm-hmm.
it is very normal for me to go in and crack a joke
Hmm.
and,
Mm-hmm.
do something to kind of break that initial ice,
Mm-hmm.
or I'll, whatever it is. But
Yes.
like sometimes when you change into your exams, they give you these paper shorts, and I'll say,
Mm-hmm.
these shorts, they're very fancy and they're all yours afterwards. So
Yeah.
like something like
This
that, just
this
to
is
joke
great.
around, create
Absolutely.
that like levity so that
Yes.
when they can relax, they're more likely to talk to you openly and
Uh-huh.
confide in exactly what's going on, and also
Uh-huh.
feel comfortable to ask you those clarifying questions because they feel that they can do that. Now, it is a tough environment out there for physicians because creating that environment of levity takes time, and
That's right.
time is limited.
That's correct.
Especially most frontline doctors, they're lucky if they have 15 minutes with a patient. So you have to create that energy. You got to connect with your doctor. You got to get a proper history. You got to do your diet. You got to do your physical exam. You got to figure out what's going on. You got to order tests. You got to do all the stuff, all while keeping that patient in mind. And that is a challenge, you know. I think it, you know, if we're in an environment where doctors have a little more time with their patients, it can help patients relax so that you can get that proper history, because really understanding what is going on with the patient is helpful. I'll leave you with this, that patient that I had in residency who had this abdominal pain, and she would have this reoccurring abdominal pain, intense abdominal pain. And this woman was having this abdominal pain evaluated for like a decade. She had exploratory abdominal surgery in search of the cause of this abdominal pain. She brought me a big old file of all of the images to our office. And at that time I was a resident, so I had the time to sit and go through everything. And I'm like, everything is negative. Like from an organic standpoint, everything is negative. So the next time I saw her, I sat down, I said, tell me, when did this first start? Like what was happening when you first started having this abdominal pain? And she told me that she was on a boat. Her father had died, and they were spreading his ashes. They were on a boat in the middle of nowhere. The boat stopped suddenly, and everyone went flying to one end. And her abdomen went crashing into the railing, and she had basically an abdominal contusion. She had an injury to her abdomen from this whole boating experience. And so I had a feeling that there was a correlation with her pain whenever she was under stress. When she was feeling some negative, strong emotion, her abdominal pain would show up. And so it started to wonder, is this a psychological presentation? Because she was in so much pain from losing her father. And then she had this actual injury that happened to her in that moment. And whether her brain made a connection, the pain of the actual injury to the pain she was feeling from her loss. And so every time she got stressed out, every time she was having this strong negative emotion, she would feel the abdominal pain. And so it became more of a psychological event. Which is why all of her tests were normal. So she ended up, she was very grateful for having had someone to just listen to her and not, you know, call her crazy or, you know, dismiss her symptoms. But through counseling, through rewiring how she was dealing with stress, she was able to overcome those symptoms and that, you know, this thing that she was living with for over a decade.
Well, we're going to let you go, but I tell you, I'm so glad that you shared that particular story, because we had that within the questions we're going to ask, but that unique story is something that we want our listeners all over the world to hear. And what you've been through over the years and how you've overcome and how you've done so many things. And our young people to our 55-year-olds, they can see what life really is with you, Dr. B. And all the paths that you have traveled, highways, places you've lived. Thank you so much on behalf of the Buckle Up Podcast Universe. And Brandon, you go ahead and finish up the last minute.
Dr. Smitha, you've been outstanding. I'm going to let you get to your kids. You're always welcome back. In fact, I love the fact we're living on a continuation. There's going to have to be a part 2 or something. So
it does. It does, because that story that last story about the patient, man, that's just one story she has had. But listen, thank you so much.
We're going to give you applause. Dr. B, thank you so much.
Great job.
You're outstanding.
Absolutely. It's been my pleasure.
Absolutely. Have fun. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you.
All righty.
She was
outstanding.
Yes,
ma'am. Wow. Brilliant.